week, we're sharing a beer with Pittsburgh's very own Doug Oster. He's an Emmy award-winning garden broadcaster, author, columnist, producer, all the things. We're going to be talking about the unsung heroes of gardening, your local independent garden centers, and what they offer new gardeners and old, wizened gardeners like us.
Wait, what?
We're also going to be talking about the changing face of garden media and whatever else floats our boat, which probably is literal because Doug is a fisherman. I'm Marianne Wilburn. She's Leslie Harris, and you are listening to The Garden Mixer. So my mix is a beer tonight as we're hosting Doug, and he is a Pittsburghian. How do you say that? He's from Pittsburgh. He's
a Yinzer.
Okay, you know that. I'm West Coast. I don't think they all drink beer, but I know Doug drinks beer because I've shared a few with him. So we'll see.
Do you know what a Yinzer is?
No, a Yinzer? No, I do not know.
Okay, well, you'll have the honor of asking Doug what a Yinzer is.
Is that somebody who drinks like a Yingling?
No, that's a good try, but that is not the answer. He will tell you.
Okay, all right.
It's a chilly night. I'm into the bourbon.
Oh, okay. All righty. Any excuse, it seems, these days.
No kidding.
So what's on for Clear Up Corner? I've got a couple. You've got a couple.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to weigh in. The last time we talked, or one of the last few times we talked, you came to visit me. It was awesome. You didn't steal any plants. You only brought me plants. It was really fun to see you. We went out to dinner. We visited with Jeff. We were sort of prognosticating that the gardens that we would see for Historic Garden Week in Richmond might have that odd, like, oh, there's a hole in my garden, I'll just go shopping. And we did see that because it's totally understandable. But there was this one bed that was like, wow, I can tell that those were for 4-inch pots, and those were 6-inch pots, and those were gallon pots. And I'm so hopeful that it was a lovely selection and some really good plants. And I'm so hopeful that the people who live there get good value and keep it up and enjoy those lovely plants, because there's nothing wrong with doing that. But in these events, you usually see older and established plants. So that was, hey, they were bikini ready, right?
They absolutely were, and maybe most people wouldn't even notice that. Honestly, a lot of people wouldn't notice it. If you're doing that, do yourself a favor and buy the plants that you like and that are blooming, because you're going to hopefully be stuck with them for the season. Unless, of course, you're burning money and then buy whatever blows your skirt up. Yeah, buy the plants that you're going to be using. I had to. Anything else for Clear Up?
Well, we had talked about what a whip was, and we were close. Remember?
We were. I really think it's just a semantics thing, because I was talking about my sambucus, my black lace sambucus, and can you really call all of those long stems coming off of a knuckle that I'm going to cut back some of them as whips, because that's what I want to call them? And the answer is yeah, probably. Usually it's a term used for trees, like little unbranched whips, something that you would whip your children with, that I used on a regular basis. I'm sure you did too, Leslie. Constant whipping until morale improved. And it's rooted and it's a tree. So I don't know if we were using it completely right, but if I cut a whole bunch of willow or dogwood
skinny branches, stems.
Yeah, I would call those whips, and I might use them. Who knows? But they would definitely get rooted.
You brought me one, which was beginning to root. You brought me that Salix. What was
It was fragilis, Salix fragilis, Hutchinson's red bark, although I can neither confirm nor deny that that's it. If it does turn out to be under patent, I don't believe it is, but I think it's a pass along. So I know nothing. I do this in good faith. I know nothing about it.
Nothing.
Yes.
And I can neither confirm nor deny that I actually have it and that I won't kill it or whatever. But last time I saw it, it was sitting in a pot looking like a whip with, just a stick. And I cut some off of it because I thought, and this is just trying to think like a plant, like, wow, I don't really have very sturdy legs. Maybe let's lose some weight on top. Less for those few new roots to support. I cut it about
You're so
halfway
thoughtful.
down. I know, I'm so good to plants. I try to be nice to plants.
I have a sort of an offensive Clear Up. I thought that I was really needing to be tasked with
I remember this.
of finding some synonyms for the word anal because I use it a lot because I am. And it's not a really good idea, just first off, to Google anal synonyms
Oh, don't do that.
because there's just so much out there, so much, which has nothing to do with the synonyms of anal. But here's some that we can use moving forward. We've got persnickety
Okay.
and fussy, both of which sound like I've just added another 25 years to my already
Fussy.
substantial
She's fussy.
amount. She's very persnickety, that one. Demanding, critical, meticulous, punctilious,
Oh, I like
prissy,
that one.
priggish, rigid, orderly, obsessive, overexacting. I've actually just read the contents of my resume right there.
Or thesaurus, whichever.
I don't need anything else.
Punctilious is my favorite. I love it. It's a good word.
Punctilious. I'll try and use that as many times in conversation as possible and on this podcast. But I have a feeling I'm still going to slip back to anal, sadly. And Zinnia, we were going back and forth when we were talking about the bikini ready garden. How long does it take my zinnia to go from seed to bloom? Trying to work it out in our heads, and it turns out we were pretty close. We were on almost on the money, 6 to 8 weeks, depending. They're a short day plant, so when those days get even just slightly shorter after the equinox in the middle of the summer or at the beginning of the summer rather, they actually bloom more freely. They still can bloom before, but they'll bloom more freely in response to those shorter days. There are a couple series, I believe, that are trying to fix that as if it needs fixing, but it does need fixing for production.
Yeah,
But
I would imagine.
yeah,
But they love the heat to get started, don't they?
they love a little bit of heat. They love that heat.
Hot flashes in the garden.
Well, since we've got Doug coming in just a little bit, I thought maybe we should go ahead and proceed with our Damn, I Wish I Planted That a little earlier in the program than usual. But before we do that, I think we should say, hey, why are you not subscribed to the Garden Mixer? Okay. Why are you just listening? Why are you just seeing what we have to offer? We have to offer a lot. So hit that subscribe button, darn it. Damn it, even. And do so on Substack. Even if you're not on Substack, oh no, you can subscribe. I don't know. You don't need the app to subscribe to Substack, and you'll get those wonderful notes. And if you subscribed as a paid subscriber, then you'll also get the OMS episodes, the One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, and that'll get delivered right to your inbox. You hardly have to lift a finger. I mean, you have to lift, the little finger that hits pay. You have to do that. But so subscribe here on YouTube, subscribe everywhere you can, Spotify, leave reviews, just do what you can.
Exactly. We are so happy to do it, and it really is fun, but y'all, it takes a minute to get it together with all this stuff, and so we're trying to streamline our workload, we're trying to bring in some money so maybe we can hire, that administrative assistant that we
Joe
always
and Jane.
joke about, Joe and Jane, to help us out because we love doing it and we wanna keep doing it, and we don't wanna say, "Huh, wow, that was really hard to do, and now we can't do it anymore." So this is why we ask these things of you.
Well, I actually want to stay in my garden all the time.
I
I
know.
quite literally go down there in the morning, very, very early morning, and have the feeling like I just want to be here all day.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to my desk. So it's
It
basically just, helping me to keep gardening as all day long.
We're recording this the day after Mother's Day, and we said, "Oh, how's your Mother's Day? How's your Mother's Day?" And back when my kids were little, my perfect Mother's Day and Marianne was we discovered that we were the same animal. Can you believe it? My perfect Mother's Day when I had, the family and the little kids, bringing home the artwork from school was like, "You all, you 3, my son, my daughter, my husband, you be responsible for every meal. Somebody bring me a sandwich at lunch, take out for dinner, and I will be in the garden from dawn until dusk. Goodbye." And that was the perfect Mother's Day.
It was the anti-Mother's Day. You're the anti-mother. Yeah, I'm so glad
Don't
because
talk to me unless you need stitches.
so it's not just me with a cold and shriveled heart for my little babies at that time. So anyway, all right, quickly,
Damn, I wish.
quickly, girl. Damn, I
Damn,
wish.
I
Damn, I
wish.
wish I'd planted that. What is this section? This is where we say you're walking around, you're looking at other gardens, you're thinking of all the gaps in yours, and then you see this plant in somebody else's garden, and you think, damn, I wish I'd planted that. And that is what we are talking about. So mine, this podcast, we're recording a little early, but it's going to drop June 6th. Mine is Campanula glomerata, which is an odd one, actually. It's called the clustered bellflower. It's not what you expect from a campanula, which is those little bells. They have those little bells, but they're all clustered together. It's technically a clumping perennial, but it also spreads with rhizomes. So if you keep it divided, you usually can stop it from doing too much naturalizing. I've never really divided mine, and it's taken over an area of about 3 feet by 4 feet, which is a fair amount of space, but goldenrod, anybody? So I'm totally good with it. It's a Europe East, I think, temperate Asia native. It is anyway. Let me describe these flowers because they are just this like little popsicle sticks of purple flowers and just deep, deep purple. Beautiful, beautiful plant. Zones 3 to 8, average soils, maybe on the moist side, and it takes full sun. But if you're if you're getting down to those sort of zone 8 areas, you might want to give it a little bit of shade in the afternoon. But an absolute stunner of a plant. And I got it as a pass along plant from a friend of mine who had it in their garden. And I went, oh, damn, I wish I'd planted that. So then I did. I've been growing it for about 8 or 9 years.
Have you ever seen it in a nursery?
Um, I've never looked at it in a nursery because I'm not a massive fan of campanulas overall. This friend had it, so I got it. Now I was looking the other day at something with bellflower, and a proven winners cultivar came up,
Hmm,
and it's called. Let me think for a minute. Bells and whistles. It
okay.
doesn't look completely like mine, but um, there you go. There, if you want to, and it was new this year, so yeah, it's going to be coming out.
I had never heard of Campanula globurata. Globurata, is that correct that I'm saying it? Glomerata.
Thinking it's just glomming on you.
It's glomming on you. So I had to do a quick Google search, and I saw what I liked. I mean, rich, rich purple flowers and a nice height, and so anyway, I'm already a fan,
About
even
two
though I know
feet,
much about it. 2 feet tall.
about
Um,
that.
so mine's a little unusual because it's a very, very common plant, but it's a situation that some gardeners might have run into. This being the day after Mother's Day, we've had Easter fairly recently. Do you ever get or buy those hothouse macrophylla hydrangeas that are just what's arrived in your, shopping basket or at your door is just a mass of beautiful flowers that hydrangea flowers, and you get that and you bring it in and you put it in your dining room table, but it's a plant. And I've heard more than one person say that they were instructed that they could not plant that plant, and you can. And so damn, I wish I'd planted that. Don't throw those away. Don't put them in your compost pile. They have a root system. They are regular MAC hydrangeas, which means that they love a bit of rich shaded soil, partial sun, and they will grow depending on what it is. They could grow 3 by 3, they could grow 5 by 5. You could do a deep dive on what cultivar you have, but chances are pretty good, especially if it's from a supermarket, that won't be very obvious or accurate. I would just put it in your landscape and see what goes on, unless you're somebody who really suffers from deer damage, then I wouldn't bother. But so 4-inch pots, I had access to about a dozen of those because of a tablescape I was doing at the beautiful Kaspari store that's here in Charlottesville for a Garden Club of Virginia event. And so I bought all those. They were in the display. And then I brought them all home and stuck them on this hillside, and now they are 4 by 5. It's amazing and beautiful flowers. So don't be not planting your hot house hydrangeas. Also, don't be putting them.
Mrs. Harris, can I ask a question, please?
Yes,
Can I make a
I do
statement, please?
go on. Sorry, little
Mrs. Harris.
Marianne in the back there with the glasses. What is it?
Yeah, I have a little caveat, Mrs. Harris, on that
Do
one.
you know?
I do. Sometimes those hydrangeas are not hardy for you. Sometimes they are zone. I mean, depending on I'm in 6B, but they're not always hardy. There are some macrophyllus that are not going to be hardy for you. So be aware. Be
I'm
aware.
going to clear up corner for this.
Okay, okay, okay. I'm
I
just
thought Macs
saying.
were hardy up to like they're hardy in Cape Cod.
Not all of them. There are some that are like, what do they call them? Florist hydrangeas, or maybe that's just a catch-all term for the whole thing. But there are some that are not going to be hardy. They're like zone eights, and
Oh
you
my
can't.
gosh, we're
Yeah,
gonna have to
just
edit
one
this
or
whole thing
two.
out.
No, no, no. I mean, actually, one of us is going to be slightly wrong on this, right? So that's good. And we'll clear it up later on Clear Up Corner. But yeah, you do. There are some that are not going to be tremendously hardy. Where's Paul
Okay,
Westervelt when you need him? Um,
I know, but it's still
but
worth a
plant
try,
them
wouldn't you
anyway.
say?
Plant them anyway.
Yeah.
100% plant them anyway,
And don't
and
put them in the
see.
sun before you plant them, because all they've ever known is the hothouse and your dining room table, so plant them or leave them in the shade until they get just like, any house plant that you bring outside. Get them used to that sunny thing, that big orb, it can be dangerous.
Yes, exactly. And I even feel terrible for even saying that, or inserting any doubt into your beautiful world there. But I think there is some doubt there. I can't think of the cultivars, but there are some that are.
And you could say the same about bulbs that you buy in flower. Those
Mhm.
those are bulbs that you can plant in your garden. So don't be afraid to reuse, the things that seemingly, oh, well, that was something that just came from the florist, like a cut flower. It might be something that you can plant. And don't be saying, damn, I wish I'd planted that when you could have.
Yeah, and if it walks like a duck, and talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. So plant it in
A
your
plant
garden.
that you can
Don't
plant.
plant the duck in your garden. That's another bit of clickbait. Do bananas instead. Doug, hey.
Sorry, I had some problems getting in.
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce you, and we'll go into it. We are on video, so where's your makeup?
This is as good as it gets.
What?
I
Come
did my
on.
hair too. I'm ready.
All right. Doug Oster is an Emmy award winning garden host, author, columnist, producer. He's also a podcaster now. He hosts the Talking Trees. Is that right, Doug? The Talking Trees
Talking
podcast?
Trees podcast for Debbie Tree Expert Company.
That's right. So you're sort of stepping into our area here, the podcasting. We've been doing this now for 2 months now. So, I guess everybody's got a
I think I'm in
podcast.
year 3 of mine. So
In addition to being all of those things and being in garden media for many, many years, Doug is also a good friend and somebody that I look forward to seeing every time I go to the Mid Atlantic Trade and Nursery Association meeting in Baltimore in January. We've had some good times there, and we just saw each other up in Allegheny County as well. I went up into your neck of the woods, which is Pittsburgh.
yeah, that was fun to hang out with you in my town instead of in Baltimore. That's where we usually see each other, or out on the road at one of those garden communication events.
I'll say a little story about Doug. I first met him at a garden writers convention, which is now GardenCom, and it was in Pittsburgh, and you were one of the organizers, and we're walking along down the street, and I was completely new to anybody, didn't know a soul. And there was this, television personality and, international man of mystery walking ahead and talking about the town and Primanti Brothers and all these things. And you said, we're seeing a lot of 1% gardens, and they're good, but the gardens that I like, they're the real gardens. They're the smaller gardens. We're not seeing as many of those as I want to see, and it's the gardens, the people's gardens around here. And I thought, oh, I like this guy because I was in the process of putting the proposal together for my first book, Big Dreams, Small Garden, which is all about that. You don't have to have the 1% garden and the 1% property in order to have a beautiful garden. And I know you have really done so much, Doug, to push that in both your radio show, your because you've got a radio show in the morning, The Organic Gardener, on Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. And you have done that in all of your column work, and you're a real champion for those gardens.
Thanks. And I sort of stepped away from being an organizer of that event because of that.
Oh,
I really feel that there's nothing wrong with going to see those fancy gardens where the people don't garden, but I think there's just more to learn and just to see a regular garden it's more realistic, and it shows the struggles we all have with gardening, and we all have our struggles. I was working all day in the garden, planting and trying to keep the deer out and trying to keep the rabbits out and whatever it might be. I like regular gardens. That's just my thing. And I probably should have kept my mouth shut during that walk down that street, but I'm not very good at keeping my mouth shut. So
No. Well,
I
I was
really did.
enamored.
I kind of wear it on my shirt sleeve, and I'm glad that you heard that. That makes me feel good because the gardens I wanted to see were kind of moved to the optional day, where nobody was left. Whoever could stick around for one more day, they got to see the crazy gardens and the regular gardens and the regular people. And I like picking those people's brains. I mean, again, I'm sure the 1% gardens are beautiful to look at, but what are you going to get out of talking to that gardener, except that telling you what she or he told their gardener to do? Whereas when somebody is like growing a certain clematis or daffodil or whatever it is, they can tell you, oh, this one has special meaning to me because of this, or I found this variety because and I've just had such great luck with it. Some of my other cultivars, they just haven't caught on, but this one, I'm telling you, that's what you want to hear if you're going to, if you're going to be talking about plants. That's what you want to hear. And then you can kind of make a mental note of that and say, oh boy, that's a good idea. And how many times do you guys all do that? Where you meet somebody, whether it's at a nursery or a garden or wherever it might be, and they tell you about a plant, and then you start to look at it, and then it becomes one of your plants, and then you start to tell people about it. I wrote about a shrub today on my social media called Caria japonica, and it's kind of fallen out of favor. It was kind of a big deal during the 1960s and early 70s, but it's kind of faded away. You know how that is with plants. It's kind of like fashion. And in my area, for something to be deer resistant, to just do its thing, go 8 foot by 8 foot, it's kind of a monster, to throw out these beautiful blooms and then rebloom again, barely in the summer. But then in this weeping habit it has just to touch the ground and make another plant, and then you dig that one out and move it somewhere else. I mean, that's a perfect plant. You can stick it anywhere, part shade, part sun, but you don't see it very much in gardens.
Do you grow the double form or do you grow the white or
Double, double. I didn't even know there was a white until today when I was researching it for my Facebook post. Somebody said, "Is there any other colors?" And I'm like, I don't know. All I ever had was orange. So
Well, I'm not convinced, and maybe Leslie you can help with this, but I'm not convinced that the white is actually a caria. It may actually be that shrub that it's called jet bead or jet what have you. It looks
I think
exactly
I
like a
found I
caria.
found a Caria japonica, and then the other name is something Alba something or other.
Okay.
When I looked it up, so
And
uh,
no, as usual, I can't help at all, but I do love
yeah,
the carrier.
Maybe. Well, I know Leslie probably wanted to jump in there on the 1% gardens and defending.
I just totally agree with what you're saying, Doug. And when you're walking down the street and you see, just landscape plants and a little patch of lawn, even though nobody's playing on it, it's sad. And then you come to that one, little tiny front yard where somebody's dumped their heart and soul into it. And that's what you want to stand and stare at. And if the person's there, you're going to harangue them with questions, and they probably want to scurry inside or get away from this weirdo who's asking them stuff. Um, but from the 1% gardens, there are a couple of things that are, just worth thinking about. And that in the best possible way, possibly the gardener who is not getting his or her hands dirty is actually good on the design or has put input into the design. And there have been a couple of times where I've interviewed people who had gardens that they can't possibly have been maintaining themselves, and yet they maintain little pockets or they love dividing this little thing. So yes, it's a lot of stuff is not actually at their fingertips, but some of the good stuff that they really enjoy is. So it's but I totally know what you mean about those people who simply
Not judging. Everybody gardens differently.
Oh, come on, Judge. That's what this show's all about, Doug.
I really do believe that everybody gardens a little bit differently. And certainly my garden's not for everybody. And when they see it on TV, sometimes they complain about it, but it is what it is and it's mine. And that's just the way I look at gardening. So it doesn't make it right or wrong. And gardening is wonderful for everybody, and do it the way you want to do it. That's fine with me.
yeah.
I agree.
If I'm showing off things, I want to show off things that I love, and that's natural.
Yeah.
There are so many gardens that you walk into and they don't have a personality. You know when the hand of the gardener or the owner is involved in that garden. You walk in, you know it instantly. Even if it's a very, very big garden, you can still feel that gardener is in there. Even if they have 2 or 3 gardeners working for them, they are there. It is an intensely personal experience. This last February, I was in the UK at the Great Dixter Symposium. And Fergus Garrett was walking us through Hastings. And he said, "Here's my absolute favorite garden in Hastings." And we all thought, "Oh, this is going to be amazing." And we walked up to this little tiny front garden with a lawn and about 50 different gnomes, little gnomes in different places, and squirrels. And it was just immaculately manicured and absolutely beautiful. And Fergus was just beaming. And he said, she loves her garden. She's in here and she's just everything about it. She's like 90 years old. And this is my favorite garden in Hastings. And I thought, Marianne, oh, you are such a bitch. Like, you have got to get better. I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on our explicit rating, Doug. We shouldn't judge other people's efforts. Absolutely. They're going to be different.
So, Doug, I was stalking you a little bit on social today because I didn't, I'd heard of you, but I didn't know that much. And I was so pleased to see golf clubs in your garden. And would you please tell me about that? Because that was what could be more personal.
Well, I did a story years ago when I worked for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I think the guy called me and just gave me a tip for how to support plants. And he told me how he was doing it. And he worked at a golf course. And in the Lost and Found, if it was there longer than 6 months or a year or something, he got to keep the clubs. And so he took all these clubs and he was supporting using them as plant stakes. And I thought it was a great story and good pictures and everything. Well, then he wanted to come see my garden, which I was happy to have him come look at it. And he brought a bunch of golf clubs with him. And so, like, that's my thing, is kind of a lack of any
Oh,
style
that's
or anything.
style.
Just
I
like
think that's
when I
style.
see something, I don't know about that, but that's got to be 15 years ago. I did that story, maybe longer. And I still use the same golf clubs. And I only use them really for my peas. And so they're growing up right now. The peas are growing up the golf clubs. And then I kind of put them to the side with the rest of the junk that's over there for growing early in the season and late in the season. And again, you'd be surprised at the reactions you get it from that. Some people love it. Other people just scratch their heads and like say, how could you have golf clubs in your garden? I don't get it, which is cool. But that's why you can't really be too judgy. You've got to, everybody, like Marianne said, every garden has
Yeah.
its own personality.
Leslie is just trying to justify her latest golf obsession. Doug, I think you need to know the
That's
backstory. Like you're fishing, that's Leslie's golf.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they have a lot in common. Tell me about how fishing and gardening relate for you. I mean, it's kind of obvious in some ways. You're outdoors. I saw the snapping turtle post. There were snapping turtles that were fornicating. He interrupted accidentally. And,
And
you
they
know,
weren't happy about it.
Well, who would be? Let's face it. There's business to be done.
Hey, they're out in the public. Okay. It's not like they're in some like hidden spot. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know it was two turtles until I posted the video and I started looking
and you
at it
saw
again.
two
I'm like,
turtles.
holy cow, I interrupted something there. One difference between fishermen and gardeners that I think is important is that gardeners always share their secrets and fishermen never do.
Uh-huh. Okay.
For me, it's about just being outside and being away from the noise. That's
Yeah.
my garden, and that's my fishing on a kayak. It's just, time to reflect, and you might think, like, somebody doesn't know anything about gardening, thinks that gardening is just this peaceful, relaxing thing, but it can be very stressful. Well, the same is true for fishing. Fishing is like, sometimes, a very intense, concentrated, you're hunting for something you can't see. And so you're trying to figure things out, and things go wrong, and you're on that kayak, and you're all tangled up,
Oh god.
and you're fishing angry. Well, the same thing can happen in the garden. Again, if somebody doesn't know about gardening, they're like, "Oh, gardening, what a wonderful thing." But when you walk into your garden and you realize the deer somehow got in, and now all your clematis buds are gone. Yeah, the hostas that you're growing inside that garden because the deer can't get in are gone. Your lilies that you are obsessed with are gone. That's not a nice, calm feeling. That's some
That
uh,
super level homicidal feeling.
yeah, yeah, that's some dark stuff. It's you start fantasizing about, yeah, about killing deer, about
Crossbows and
killing, yeah, which
everything.
you can't do. You're not allowed to do. You're not even allowed to throw anything at them. But that's what crosses your mind because you've worked so hard at creating this, or at seeing this thing bloom that you haven't seen bloom in a year.
And then as a
Uh,
garden media professional, you have to talk about gardening for wildlife and keep a straight face and not have the darkness
well,
come through.
actually, I talked about it on the radio show this week because people can relate to that. A lot of people actually, when that happens, sometimes they just drop it. They give it
Yeah.
up.
My mother, yeah.
They just they just say, "I'm not. I tried to garden, and the deer ate everything, and this and that." And I could feel for them. That's what I talked about on the show. Is just that, like, for an instant, I have that feeling of like, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, one day that little part of that fence fell down, and I let my guard down. And if I wouldn't have gone out there then, I would really be, nuts because I must have caught him right at the beginning because I didn't lose much. But again, clematis that I've been growing, I bought back when Martha Stewart was just making her deal with Kmart, So how long has that
Oh,
been where I could
Lord.
find a clematis that
I
no one
wasn't
else was
born yet,
growing?
Doug, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I know. You probably don't know what a Kmart is. Uh,
I had the same thing happen this winter, and it was that same thing. They got in, they pushed through, and that's the area that I put all the stuff that I can't protect. And to have that happen, the level of anger, yeah, it is a dark place.
but then there's the opposite on both of these things, fishing and gardening. There's the time just to sit out there and in the quiet, maybe watch, pollinators do their thing, just like the snapping turtles. But, seriously, too, who could ever say they saw snapping turtles mating, in the wild?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you see these amazing things, and you see the same sort of amazing things in the garden. I ran across a big black rat snake the other day that first wouldn't let me out of the garden, just got in that protective mode of, like, where the snake is in a position, like, if you move and try and walk past me, he's gonna spring right at you. And so I just waited it out, went back in the garden, and then got a nice video of the snake just slowly slithering away, and
Very
the
cool.
responses to that are just like, "Oh, not me," or others are just like me. They're like, "Oh, a snake is the best thing that could be in the garden." But it's startling. It's
Mhm.
startling because I walked in through that same gate, did what I needed to do, probably 10 minutes or whatever I was doing, transplanting something or moving something or checking on something, and as I walk out, there's that snake right at the front of the gate. How it happened that quick, I don't know, and it was a long one. It was probably 6 foot long, and they don't scare me.
They don't scare me either. I think I love seeing them, but I've seen other people step back in horror. I've seen other people still run away, like, as if they were gonna
Well,
chase you or
I had
something.
people that said that I should have killed it. Some people feel that way, and that, you have to. That's why I think putting it out stuff like that onto social media gives you a good. feeling for where people are. Like I can see that like 50 years ago or something, people would just, oh, when you see a snake, you got to kill it. But nowadays, in kind of the modern, like, well, remember snakes eat nature's balance and all that, and they more afraid of you than you are of them. But yeah, no, I forget what they want to use a garden tool to do it too. I can't remember which one it was, but
An edger would do nicely if you really put your mind to it.
it wasn't an edger. It might have been pitchfork they were
Oh,
suggesting,
God.
which again, to try and get a snake might be difficult because you just, be missing. And
Yeah.
Well,
So
Doug, I want to ask you about something that I know is really close to your heart, and that's independent garden centers and how important they are. I was reading an interview with you on Visit PA, I think from last year or the year before, and they asked you, what is the best thing that a new gardener can do? And you didn't hesitate and said they need to march down to their local nursery, their family run nursery, and ask them for their advice about what they should do. And our independent garden centers are a lifeblood for real plant people. And I know that you do a lot of work with them, don't you? All around you. You have so many there, so many good ones.
yeah, we're lucky. We have a lot of them. And I always tell people the best nursery is the closest one, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't visit other ones because everyone has their specialty. And now, in some ways, local independent nurseries support me. They support the radio show and maybe in other ways too. I mean, I don't personally take any money from them or take any advertising money from anybody, but the radio show does. But I just know from, doing gardening for so long, so many decades, that the information that the people have that work at a good nursery is invaluable. And even though all three of us spend so much of our lives revolved around plants and gardening, somebody like that who works with a plant every day for an entire season and knows all about it, and if it's tough, if it blooms, if it doesn't, I can't tell you how much I've learned from those people. And then the other thing is the plants are taken care of. They have to be. That's when you walk in there, I don't care if it's the day it came off the truck or 2 or 3 months later, that hose they drag around is an important part, and knowing how to water the right way. I don't buy my plants at big box stores. I just don't do it. But when I have to go to a big box store, and the only time I really have to go is if something my local hardware store doesn't have, and that's usually lumber. And I see what's happening with the plants in the garden center. I'm just like, ugh. At an independent nursery, you're going to get better plants. You're going to get different plants, and you're going to get so much more information and better service. And I always tell people that you should get to know the people at the nursery and that there are no dumb garden questions. They want you to ask your garden questions. They want to know what kind of gardener you are. I like to get to know them. And people always say, well, what's the best nursery? And I think of all the nurseries that I deal with or know in my area, I couldn't tell you one that was a bad nursery. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't be a bad nursery, otherwise you're not going to make it. And I was looking for something very specific on the worst day to shop at a nursery,
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. But I'm traveling soon. I needed this certain thing uh, to deal with the rabbits called hot pepper wax. It's getting hard to find. And my one favorite nursery right down the road, because it's the closest, didn't have it. Then I went down the other side of the road, and he called his other store for me while he's, in crazy mode. He doesn't have to do that, even for me, and he's just like, oh, just let me call the store because they might have it. And he calls them and said, they got one left. And I'm like, all right, tell them I'm on the way. And I'm on the way. And got in and out as quick as I could because I was back at the nursery today, of course, and it was much easier to get what I needed at the nursery today. Again, I'm in panic mode to get everything planted or into a place where it can take care of itself while I'm gone for 10 days.
how about the water for those new plants that have been planted? How do you plan for
He's
that? Do you
praying
have
for rain.
a rain?
In May, here where I'm at, even mulched for 9 days without rain would be okay,
Mhm.
but we'll get rain. I mean, we'll get rain. It'll be fine. And I don't have full sun, so it'll be fine. Those plants I'm not concerned with at all. What I'm concerned with are things in flats, and I'm concerned about things that are in flats in a greenhouse,
Yeah.
an unheated
Yeah, they need
greenhouse.
water.
Yeah, like all those Nicotiana that you were transplanting. I was
Oh,
doing the same thing based on a very silly bet that I made with Leslie and Aaron Shannon, the impatient gardener, that I would grow a Nicotiana. So, of course, I grew a lot of Nicotiana because it's insurance, but then you've got all these big, beautiful plants and you got to put them somewhere.
mine wasn't insurance. Mine was stupidity.
Well, I mean,
I don't know why. I don't know what I was thinking,
they're
but
small. Wee!
yeah, I did like 6 pots, 6 pots this size. They gotta have 100 plants in them. And now the good thing was yesterday my daughter didn't have anything to do. She goes, "Can I come over and help you with the garden?" I'm like, I guess,
I guess
And
so.
so, yeah, she was transplanting Nicotiana sylvestris, and the first round didn't go too well. I had to say 1 plant per cell. I had to tear it all down and tell her to start over again.
Oh, geez, with free help.
Take flat after flat after flat from the greenhouse out to the garden because, again, I'm relying on some rain and transplanting to bigger containers and crossing my fingers. May is just a tough time
Yeah.
to travel for us.
One other thing with the local garden centers is also the fact that they can recommend local and regionally specific cultivars of things that may not do well in, even 2 or 3 counties over, but here they will do really well based on the climate. And when I was down in Mobile, they have a couple different nurseries down there that are they're on Facebook. They're constantly putting out these plants, and you may not want to just go in and buy a hydrangea quercifolia. You might want to buy a hydrangea quercifolia Edith something or other that I can't remember because it doesn't get leaf spot in that region. But the big boxes aren't telling you that. You've got to go to your nursery people.
And the other thing is, like when they listen to me or one of us, and they find a plant that like, oh, Caria. Oh, well, I never heard of that before. They can go to the nursery, and in this area, at least, we're only 2 hours away from where everyone is growing out all the plants. It's up on Lake Erie. That's the climate where all the big producers are. And so they can just order a Caria, which is something you're not going to get anywhere else. And because trucks are coming down from Lake Erie this time of the year for a nursery at least every 2 weeks and probably more often. I was looking for a specific pepper, and I just happened to mention it. And was that yesterday? Yeah, I think that was Mother's Day. I just mentioned it. And when I went back today to get what else I needed, a woman came up to me. She goes, "Hey, I sent in that order for the super chili pepper, and I think we'll have it by Wednesday." And it's like, okay, I leave Thursday, so perfect
Wow.
timing. And I didn't ask
Wow.
them to order it. I was just looking for it, and they were saying, "Well, what about this one? What about that one?" I said I can use those, but super chili was a 1988 All America selection, and it'll put on peppers under any circumstances, and they're just the right heat for me. You fall in love with a plant, and yes, at some point you're not going to be able to get it anymore. I should have started them from seed, but I didn't, and so
You decided to do Nicotiana instead, Doug. You realize that.
I don't know why. I just ordered the seeds. I've got another Nicotiana, and I don't know which one it is, but the common name is flowering jasmine, and that one it acts like a perennial. But
Oh,
we had a real bad cold snap here, like -25, and I was worried that it wasn't gonna do it, and I was actually out there today, and I'm like, "Oh, it did come up. It is there. What am I gonna do with all that Nicotiana sylvestris? Where am I gonna put it?" Most of my plants that are left over, if they make it from the travel thing, I have I hold a local, like, plant swap giveaway. So I'll just take a truckload of plants there and just stick them up on a wall and label them and just say, "Here you go."
nice.
Leslie's got a great nursery near her called the Ivy, is that right? And it's just this big,
Yeah,
wonderful
yeah.
place, and every time when I was visiting her, I visited them, and any question I had, they were, "Oh, you know what? I can't help you, but he can, and come over," and I love that. That's what's so great about an IGC.
Extremely knowledgeable.
30 years ago, I didn't know anything about gardening. I lived in Ohio, and all I wanted to know, I had a cactus that had put on fruit. And I wanted to know could I sow the seeds? And my local nursery then, that's a real weird question. They figured it out right then and there and said, yeah, put them out, you surface sow them. And I did. Now I had little cactus plants, which I killed by overwatering them, but I got them.
Right. So if you're a new gardener, everybody listeners, pick up that phone. Yes, that's Marianne telling you to pick up your phone, your Oracle, and look for your local garden centers and then go visit each and every one of them because they're all going to have something different. I know the ones by you, Doug, there's what, 6 or 7 there, and they all specialize in, just slightly different things. So go and do
And
that.
here we are the city of bridges. There's only one city in the world with more bridges, Venice. And so we always tell people, we kid each other that do yourself a favor, cross a river. Okay, go cross the river and go to another nursery somewhere. And then sometimes I'll say maybe you'll have to cross 2 rivers to get to a certain nursery. So that just means go explore a little bit.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is a beautiful city. It was such a surprise to me. I really didn't know what to expect, and that's the second time I've been now in a decade. And wow, what a beautiful city! And the Cathedral of Learning. If you want to go and have a wonderful weekend, go to Pittsburgh and go to the Phipps. Go to which is
The Phipps
Oh,
is awesome.
it's an incredible city. And I think the Cathedral of Learning just blew me away. And then going up the funicular up to the top of the hill and watching is it the baseball stadium? I'm not too big in sports. I'm not sure what it is.
You can see both stadiums from up there.
Three
Mount
Rivers
Washington.
And they do the fireworks at night. And it really is, forget about Philadelphia. You could do that anytime. Go to Pittsburgh.
ask Marianne, ask Doug what a Yinzer is.
Okay, Doug, what is a Yinzer?
Well, Yinzer is a Pittsburgher, but it's the way they talk. So Yins means, how would I say it?
It means y'all,
Yeah,
basically.
Yin's going down the south side.
Oh,
So in the English language, we have no plural for, the second person. You is you. And, we have to deal with that in our certain, ways. And in the South, it's y'all. And in Pittsburgh, it's yins.
And what's interesting is I never picked it up. I moved here 26 years ago from Cleveland, but my son, he picked it up. He moved in here in 7th grade. And so he has some of I have a little bit of it. When I say south, I say south side. And you kind of pick up the X, especially when you're talking to other Yinzers, you can't say south side. You got to say south side.
you love your city so much. I always assumed you were the absolute Pittsburgh born and bred, Doug, because you just love the city. I mean, you wrote Steel City Garden, the book.
If you look carefully at Steel City Garden, about all the black and gold plants in the back, there's a picture of me wearing my orange Browns jersey with a tithonia with orange flowers.
Oh, that was a little dig, was it? Okay. You see, it's lost on
Well,
somebody
no,
like me.
it wasn't a little dig. It was a little piece of honesty because my publisher didn't want me to do it, and I was just like, you can't write Steel City Garden pretending you're a Yinzer. That's just not cool. And so they have to know that, yes, now I love Pittsburgh. It's our home, and this is it. There's no other place we're going to live. But that doesn't mean that you're going to give up your love of the Cleveland Browns. And when people question me about that, I said, well, if you moved to Cleveland, would you become a Browns fan then? And they're all say, oh, no, of course not. Well, that's just the way it works,
Right.
And
And you
so,
came to Pittsburgh as a photojournalist, right?
yeah, a picture editor, actually. In Ohio, I was director of photography at a newspaper, and then I came here as a photo editor. But I had garden columns at all these different newspapers I worked at, and they asked me when I came to Pittsburgh to keep writing it. And I told them, this is so funny. I told them at the time, I said, well, I'm just telling you, this is like the editor and like the garden editor, that I'm going to try and build my gardening into a radio show, TV appearances, and writing, producing, all this other stuff. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, sure, go ahead. It won't bother us." Well, when it happened, it sure as heck bothered them because all of a sudden my star had risen and somebody who had been writing gardening there forever was, understandably feeling kind of like,
Who is this young impudent
"Yeah,
puppy?
he's only been here 2 years." But again, I didn't do it under false pretenses. They didn't think it could happen, and it just exploded, and luckily for me, it did, because I actually eventually moved out of photo and into the gardening world, uh, because I'd worked as a photojournalist since 1979, so I'd been in newspapers since I was 19,
You've seen some
and
amazing changes in garden media. Do you think they're for the
seen a
better?
lot of changes in newspapers
Oh,
too.
yeah. well, just
Oh,
media in
yeah. Mhm.
general. It is really hard to have a foot in both worlds, that digital and the analog world, as a writer. Do you think all these changes are for the best, good or bad, or what is your feeling overall?
I don't have any negative feelings about how the changes have happened. I have embraced them. I started embracing them when the internet began and I was in newspapers. They thought it was ridiculous that I was embracing the internet, that this is like a flash in the pan. This is no big deal. I don't know why you're creating a garden forum for people to do this. So the newspaper's everything. It is the giant dinosaur that could stomp on anybody. But I didn't see it that way, and I embraced it, and Marianne and I have had talks in the past over the years about social media and such, about me trying to drag her into the,
The
modern
21st
era.
century.
Yeah, there's a 65-year-old guy trying to drag in,
I know. I'm a 64-year-old woman
yeah.
saying, "Let's
Let's get
go."
with the program.
I love what I get to do on social media, but I am not under any kind of pressure to do it any certain way. I just if I don't wanna make videos or if I don't wanna do this or I don't wanna do that, I just do what I want, and of course, my stuff is gonna be based around photography because that's what my love is, and that might not get likes, that might not get this, that might not get that, but it makes me happy, and I have my little core group of people that enjoy it, and I guess I'm doing it for them as I did for the newspapers. I was doing it for these people, and I like doing it.
You've always been very flexible, I think.
And again, I don't really look at the numbers or anything. I just do what I like to do. And that's the beauty of being older and not having anybody to tell you what to do anymore. It's nice to be
It's
able just
freeing, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's just to be able to not have to worry so much about it, about getting numbers. When I was with the newspaper, especially the last years, it was all about numbers and it was just
Which
crazy.
is what drives what people are seeing and being able to read and get, the numbers.
Is it better to have 1,000,000 followers? I guess so. Or is it better to have, 1,000 that are
Really watching.
listening and watching? When you don't have 1,000,000, you say it's better just to have 1,000.
I would
But if they're really engaged and you engage with them, I truly believe from the rewarding standpoint of it, I mean, our podcast is small, but we hear from our people and it makes us feel good. It's
and
really
I mean,
fun.
as social, or sort of as the media world has changed, I think one of the best things of this new marketplace is podcasting, honestly. It's why I'm really thankful to be doing this. I did never expected to be doing this. Leslie dragged me in.
I'm still wondering why
What
I asked you to do this. I was doing this podcast, Doug, for 3.5 years, and I was just kinda getting lonely and weary, and I'm like, "My enthusiasm is flagging. I need somebody to prop me up," and I asked Marianne to join me, and we changed the name of it, and it's been really fun.
It is, and I can really get my heart behind it because I don't feel like you're adding to things that will stop a gardener working. Like I'm on social media and I put things out there and they're back up to what I'm writing or what have you. But writing makes somebody stop. They have to take a moment and read it, or scrolling. I don't want people to scroll mindlessly. I want them to be out in the garden. And so podcasting allows you to speak to them while they're in the garden, while they're ironing their clothes, or yeah.
They're planting out Nicotiana. I mean, it's
I
perfect.
think what it is for me is just being able to listen to a conversation. and you get to know the personality of the hosts. I enjoy that interaction. I think for me, when I'm hosting my podcast, that's what I love is, and it's the same thing that I try and do when I'm interviewing for the radio or for a story. I'm trying to get it out of the guest and make them feel at ease so that they feel comfortable enough to just say anything that they want to say. And it's surprising how much you can get out of people, even though you get, like you guys, you get used to doing that and putting people at ease and having these
We try to. Are
conversations.
you at ease right now, Doug?
Oh, I'm very much at ease.
Good. Our job here is
Hey,
done.
Doug, I have a question for you. Our job here is done. I have a question for you because I saw that you are so instructive on YouTube and maybe on your other socials also, but just like the how-tos of gardening, which is, it's important, particularly for new gardeners. And so you've had probably decades of new gardeners asking you questions. And I just wondered if the type of question had changed in the last, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years. Are more new gardeners who don't have a lot of information, are they asking for more, ecological or sustainability type information earlier in or differently than they did a few years ago?
That is a great question because everything has changed, and it's due to COVID. Um, our entire demographic for gardening was changed for the better, which is ironic for something so terrible. In that we saw the spikes before. We saw spikes for Martha Stewart. We saw spikes for 9/11. We saw spikes for an economic collapse. But we never saw a spike like this. And now it's flattened off, but it's still up there. And when I first began, my whole mission is organic gardening. When I first began in the 1980s, this is way before you guys' time. Uh,
Speak for yourself now.
people would be like, "What? Why?" Now this new group that are from COVID, they're like, they want nothing to do with chemicals. They want it to be organic. They want it to be safe. But the difference is, many of them don't have the mentors that we did. This generation before, they don't have as many gardeners. Growing up in the 1970s, just about everybody had a garden. Your parents had a garden, your grandparents knew how to garden, they taught you how to garden. Well, now it's a mystery. And so
Yeah.
I love to break it down to three things: improve the soil, know when the plants go in the ground, and don't let them dry out. And again, that takes the pressure off. Like we all of us know it. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, but those three things will get you a long way. Uh,
Yeah, they will.
and
Keeping your gates latched as well from deer is
Oh
really,
God. Don't let your fence
yeah.
break down. Oh, I hate that.
but the whole shift in this first time, second time homeowners, in their feeling of just not wanting their kids to encounter some kind of nasty chemical. That's what my whole change to organic happened when my son, who now has three kids of his own, he was 18 months old, and I didn't know anything about gardening, and I had cabbage worms really bad. And I called a friend. I said, "What do you do about cabbage worms?" He goes, "Oh, just get this stuff called Seven, sprinkle it all over, and they'll be dead." And that's what I did. And I was so proud, like, "Oh gosh, the worms are dead. I conquered this problem." And then my 18-month-old was walking barefoot through that stuff looking for snow peas. Already knew about snow peas. And it was like, I don't think that's a good thing, but how bad could it be? I got it at the hardware store and I looked on the back of the bag and I was like, it's a nerve toxin.
God.
That was just my epiphany. This new generation doesn't need the epiphany. They for the most part know that these products are available, but just what do I do? How do I use it? What should I worry about? What shouldn't I worry about? Whereas before there was a sort of feeling that if there was any kind of insect, and this still plays true on advertising, any kind of insect is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even
Yeah.
now Oh, you wanna kill the bugs in your backyard, be on patrol and,
Yeah, yeah,
these
yeah,
things and
yeah.
spray it's so sad. It's funny, mine was, completely selfish. It was budget related. I wasn't, a veg gardener. I grew some peppers and basil and stuff to make salsa. But it was all about the money. It was like, I am not spending money on things that are not beautiful plants that might feed me and look good in my garden. No way am I dedicating those dollars to those things. I don't know what they do, but we're not doing that. And then I grew to find out that that was a happy accident.
Mine also was when I did make the switch, I was kind of, like, assuming this was something new, but it wasn't new because before World War II, there was no chemical pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers, and that was a shocker to me, and that was all library information. When I tell that story, I usually say something like, "And there was no internet," and, somebody like 12 years old is sitting in the audience, and they're gasping like, like, "Yes, there was no internet. We
How
had to
did you figure it out?
we had to go to this place called the library."
There were books in it. We read
Yeah.
them. Even
Now, do
me.
you ever use any kind of chemical at all, Doug? On
No,
anything?
no.
Nothing at all?
I don't feel that I need to.
I
Um,
occasionally do for something like, for instance, last year, and almost every summer, I have a yellow-necked caterpillar that absolutely decimates every single leaf off the hamamelis, every single one. And that really weakens the plant. And most of the time, I can pre-spray with BT, and they're good. But if I a couple times I've been away, have come back, and they've taken half the tree out, and I don't have the 3 days to wait, and so I've used 7 actually in that case, and very carefully, but I don't tend to spray as a matter of course.
when I talk about it, I tell people I don't wanna do it from a soapbox, that this is the way I garden. That doesn't mean it's the way you have to garden. If you want suggestions on gardening without the chemicals and stuff, I'm the guy for you. I'll help you out. But I'm not one of those guys that's trying to force it because there's no point in that. Everybody gardens differently and deals with these problems differently. We all have the same problems. It's just how you're gonna deal with them.
Yeah, I like that, no orthodoxy. That's good. I wanna know about this trip of yours. I only slightly wanna know about it because I am actually a little bit jealous. Leslie and I were at Chelsea last year together, and, you're going what, next Monday? Are you leaving? In
Thursday.
Thursdays. Oh, wow. Thank you for squeezing us in here. I don't know that I need to go every year. I'm planning my trips, my tours every other year for Chelsea. Do you go every year?
I don't even think I go that often. I think this has probably been at least 3 since I've been there. This is just who will go. That's what's determining for me. If I do Chelsea every year, I'm certainly not gonna get my return travel people because 'cause they've been there.
Right.
Right.
So, I just do it probably every 3 years, maybe 4 years.
So what will be your first stop when you walk through the gate? Where are you gonna go first?
The first thing I wanna see will be the biggest gardens that they've designed, because I love that English way that they do it, where you're 12 back and people go to the front and they look and they photograph and they fade away, and then you're 11 back
Thank you.
and everyone's polite and they're happy and they're nice and you get up there. I like that part, but then I like to go way in the back to those littler gardens, and even though it's packed, I can usually spend a little bit more time back there and exploring and getting ideas. All the Chelsea for me is all about ideas. Most thrilling thing of Chelsea for me is something that the first time I went, I didn't know even existed, and it's the Great Hall with every plant you've ever seen in your life in its prime. I didn't have any idea that was at Chelsea,
Right.
and so I walked in and I was like, "Oh my gosh," and then a guy that I'd interviewed many, many times at the time worked for David Austin Roses, and he kinda took me under his wing, and, of course, their booth is amazing, and, that's the first time I ever saw a white hosta and the delphiniums and I'm obsessed also with daffodils. So to see all those daffodils all blooming and everything, that's the thrilling thing for me. And then we have some plant breeders here in my area. And so when I see like an exhibit that's all about this certain type of plant, where like a heuchera is one, and I see a certain variety and I'm like, oh, do you know these people that bred that? And they're like, yeah, one time we drove across the states and we stopped there. And I'm like, I like all of that. I like that about it. There's nothing like the first time you see Chelsea. And after that, it's amazing. It's wonderful. It's cool. But that first time, man, it's just it's hard to wrap your head around that there's this much cool gardening stuff. There's that area where it's got this tall grass that you can just sit down there and have a picnic if you want.
Very watered down Pims, right, Leslie?
Very watered down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a glass of champagne. Maybe that's the way we need to go next time.
I think I had one of those after I heard you went once, and I saw it. I said, "Oh, I guess you're supposed to have one of those."
I'll make one for you someday here. It'll be,
Yeah.
yeah, a proper one with some proper alcohol. Where else are you going in the UK while you're there? Where are you taking all these people of
Well, my
yours?
other favorite spot, and it's not everybody else's favorite spot, but it's Sissinghurst. I'm gonna make a video there.
Well, there is a lot at
Well,
Sissinghurst. I mean, I was always sort of neutral about Sissinghurst, but once they did that Delos renovation, which is now a Mediterranean garden, I mean, you could just do your whole show there practically. And it's so good. It was designed by Dan Pearson.
see that style of gardening, that's my style of gardening, just like it's not
Yeah.
formal rows and everything. And they also have this awful invasive bamboo in that garden that I have in my garden.
Which one is
I don't know
that?
what it is, but I
Ooh.
got it from a guy who told me it wasn't spreading, it was clumping, and it spreads, and I feel so bad for the people that are gonna take over this garden because it's impossible to get rid of. I mean, I was
Oh no.
cutting it
Yeah.
down yesterday. It's the bane of my existence in my garden, it really is. When I talk to people that have done something like planted camellia plant or bamboo, that you
Yeah.
have to turn your head around on it and try and look for the positives, or at least try to look the other way, do something so that this thing doesn't ruin you for gardening. I could work every day at burning and digging and excavating, whatever it would take, and there would still be a little piece. Yes, and then when I turn my back,
It'll
it'll
multiply.
be this big, and then it'll be that big, and then I'll be gone, and somebody will be saying, "Boy, I really love the daffodils in this garden, but I don't know what that stuff is over there because I can't get rid of it."
What's that plant for you, Leslie, in your old garden?
Well, the mountain mint was taking a good hold on things, but I love that plant. Oh, you know what it was? It was those horrible, the Hemerocallis, the fulva, the ditch
Oh.
lilies. Those were difficult to
Oh.
eradicate. Yeah, I would just dig them up and leave the tubers in the sun because you put those in your compost pile and you're saying hello again many times over.
Well, you can eat them.
I brought a double version of that from my old garden, believe it or not, a double ditch lily, and I still have it in my garden.
The double is at least more interesting.
It's pretty rampant.
Oh, is it for you?
It's overtaking a
Yeah.
path. Not just the bed, it's the path, so it's
So
gotta
you
go.
gotta.
Okay,
All right, Doug, I'm going to give you a quiz. It's called Rapid Fire.
I'm ready.
And you can answer with it's this or that, it's A or B. And if you want to say why with one quick sentence, you may. Ready?
Ready.
Irrigation system or hand watering?
Hand watering,
Trowel or soil knife?
soil knife,
What?
Yeah, same. Look at Marianne's face. We're moving on. Um, Gloves or no
no
gloves?
gloves.
Okay, cool. Labels or no labels?
Yes.
You can't hedge. You can't do that. That's hilarious.
Labels, but I got so many plants, I don't know what they are. Even some of my rare daffodils, I can't ID anymore, but let's go bang, bang, let's bang them out.
All right. Bass or trout?
Bass,
Okay. Daffodils, the classic trumpet or kind of more interesting doubles to Zeta type deal?
doubles.
I mean, they're so awesome. I saw this one that you put on with the green in it, green and yellow. and you were having trouble. You had split it. It was an old video. You might not remember it, but it was not flowering anymore. They were blind.
Oh, Van Sion.
Did they come back after
Oh,
you
they look
broke them
good.
up? Yeah,
They look
yeah. Oh,
good.
cool. Yeah, we're coming to your house to help you split those next time.
That's a great one. And fragrant.
Well, this has been so fun. Marianne, do you have more questions before I?
I don't. I just wish you much joy in your trip, Doug, and seeing all of those
Thanks.
wonderful places and the great pavilion. I do feel a little tiny bit jealous of seeing that this year, but I actually wish you the most luck with trying to figure out how you're going to do the show on Sunday morning when you get back on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, that's no sweat.
Yeah, well, you're an old professional, so
I'm not worried about that in any way. I'll probably stay up and go straight through.
that's great.
And thank you guys for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
It's our pleasure, Doug.
We had very much enjoyed it.